What makes a song beautiful? It's a question that sounds like it should have a relatively easy answer. I mean, we all know beautiful music when we hear it, but when you try to put your answer to this question into words, it seems pretty difficult. Beauty is obviously in the eye of the beholder. Spoiler alert, there isn't one big answer to this question that we'll all agree on, but I'm gonna do my best to describe what I think makes a song beautiful. To try and find an answer to this question, I wanted to get a small sample of songs that are at the top of my list and see if there are any big overarching similarities between them. When it comes to songs that have just dominated these kinds of playlists for me for years and years, 3 songs came to mind in just a few seconds. Fake Plastic Trees by Radiohead off their 1995 album The Bends, Johnny Cash's cover of Hurt by 9 Inch Nails from his 2002 album American 4, The Man Comes Around, and Bon Iver's Holocene from their 2011 self-titled album. These 3 tracks all help define beauty for me within music. As soon as I heard them, I felt how special they were to me, and I've listened to them countless times since. But is there a certain something, an element to these songs that makes them stick out from the rest and achieve the status of pure beauty in my mind? Starting off with Fake Plastic Trees, this is a sublime ballad that was the result of a miserable recording session. Frontman for Radiohead Tom York described the song as a combination of a joke that wasn't really a joke, a very lonely drunken evening, and well, a breakdown of sorts. He was desperately trying to record his vocals for this track, but he just could not do it. That was the case until he and the rest of the band saw Jeff Buckley perform live. It gave Tom some much needed inspiration. He got back to the studio and recorded one of my favorite vocal performances of all time. After singing the track twice, he fell to his knees and started crying. The song is about the difficulty in trying to establish real human connections in a world where everything feels fake and insincere. Fake Plastic Trees is a call against capitalism and the ever-growing consumer culture that was so prevalent in the mid-90s. Like many other Radiohead songs, this was incredibly ahead of its time. It's shocking how relevant these words are today. There's a hauntingly beautiful organ that follows York's acoustic guitar throughout the track. Combined with Tom's one-of-a-kind voice, we get that classic Radiohead futuristic, angelic sound that would later be perfected on OK Computer. Throughout the lyrics of the song, we follow a narrator who is describing this artificial world. At first, he's watching a couple. The woman is constantly surrounded by nothing that is real, and soon the man crumbles and burns out of frustration. In the second half of the song, we see the instrumental slowly fade away, but it builds back up and comes to a thunderous crescendo as York gives a powerful, emotional performance on vocals. The narrator seems to become less and less distant as the song comes to a close. He's fallen in love with the woman from before, but he's unsure of her reality. He's conflicted on whether to escape this artificial world or if he wants to try and conform to society's standards in order to try and be with this woman. Fake Plastic Trees is an extremely relevant, important look into the modern world. We get expertly written lyrics, a compelling performance from Tom York, and a timeless instrumental from this beloved group. Without any doubt in my mind, this is as beautiful as any other piece of music that I've ever heard. Johnny Cash was one of America's greatest singer-songwriters. Throughout his long, illustrious career, he put out a pretty ridiculous amount of music. In his later years, though, Cash spent much of his time covering songs, using his sparse, straightforward style. The last album released before his death in 2003 was 2002's American 4, The Man Comes Around. This project features Cash's takes on songs from Paul Simon, Lennon and McCartney, and Sting, but the real standout here is Johnny Cash covering Hurt by 9 Inch Nails from their 1994 album The Downward Spiral. This is the type of story that reminds me why I'm so obsessed with music. Written and performed by Trent Reznor, the original is a good track. It's a very poignant industrial rock song with great lyrics that even got nominated for a Grammy. But then, when Johnny Cash covers it years later, it gets completely transformed. Yeah, the instrumental is a little different. There's a lot of distortion and noise on the original, which you won't find in the cover, but when I say that the song got transformed, I'm referencing the meaning behind the song. When you hear Trent's delivery on the original, it's angry and spiteful. He's stuck in the quote-unquote downward spiral from the album title. But when you hear Johnny Cash singing the same exact words with only a slightly altered instrumental, it feels like a completely different song. Cash's version is about an old, tired man who was only a year away from his death. He's contemplating all the choices he's made in his life and coming to terms with the consequences and regret that followed those decisions. It's a cautionary tale of choosing the right path so that at the end of your life you don't spend your last days wishing that you did everything differently. Johnny Cash's voice was iconic. I'm sure 20-year-old Johnny Cash would have done a perfectly fine version of the song if time travel was a thing, but you can hear the reality of the words coming out of 70-year-old Johnny Cash's mouth. His life was crazier than most, and I mean in comparison to anyone. His time spent on this planet was a roller coaster ride from the time that he was a child until the day he died. So when you hear him say the words, "If I could start again, a million miles away, I would keep myself, I would find a way," those lines are sung in a way that make more sense coming out of 70-year-old Johnny Cash than just about anyone. The raw emotion from him, combined with the fact that you can hear in his voice that his health was failing during the time that they recorded this, it's unbelievable stuff. And finally we get to Bon Iver's Holocene. This is the third track from their 2011 self-titled album, and it is by far one of my favorite songs from this decade. Frontman of the group, Justin Vernon, among other things, is known for his angelic voice and his ability to craft these very welcoming, melancholy songs. This has been evident since the release of the band's debut album, For Emma, Forever Ago. The project was built upon feelings of depression, isolation, and loneliness, and while the sadness does come through within the songs, there's also a feeling of warmth. Holocene is a perfect example of this strange union between total despair and feeling very at home and comfortable within that despair. The song gets its name both from a bar in Portland, Oregon, and the current geological era that encompasses all of human civilization. This is what Vernon told NPR when describing the song. And by the way, epoch is another word for geological era. Most of our lives feel like these epochs. That's kind of what that song's about. Once I knew I was not magnificent. Our lives feel like these epochs, but really we are dust in the wind. But I think there's a significance in that insignificance that I was trying to look at in that song. At the introduction of the track, we're met with these two acoustic guitars panned back and forth that help introduce us to the mood Vernon is setting. As the song gets going, we get the addition of our frontman's angelic vocals as he details getting drunk on Halloween following a harsh breakup. The song continues, and there's an interesting tension and release built up by the lyrics and the instrumentation. Lyrically, our narrator is starting to find a higher understanding of life and the world around him. Coming to this understanding is matched with pressure, but there's something comforting about knowing that nothing really matters. Tension and release. Within the instrumental, we hear countless instruments join the aforementioned acoustic guitars, and then throughout the track they go in and out, quiet and loud, tension and release. Holocene is a song that tells a story on a grand scale. It's about memories, friends, family, love, but for me, the most important part is that acknowledgement that life goes on. While getting drunk on Halloween after a breakup might seem like rock bottom, it may seem like the lowest point in your life. In the grand scheme of things, it's completely irrelevant. Not only will your life go on, but so will everything around you. That significance in insignificance that Vernon mentioned in the interview is key. Holocene by Bon Iver, along with Radiohead's Fake Plastic Trees and Johnny Cash's Hurt, are my gold standard for beautiful songs. But after going in depth and looking at all of them, what brings them all together? In my opinion, the best way to describe the connection between these songs is to understand the importance of contrast. Within everything that I talked about today, within all of these songs, there are conflicting ideas that are put alongside one another. There's a spectrum on each track between two completely opposite concepts, and the given song is a medium where both can live in perfect harmony. On Fake Plastic Trees, our narrator is caught between authenticity and artificiality, two completely opposing ideas, but somehow both are seen and represented within the confines of the song. On Hurt, Johnny Cash is in a struggle between regret and satisfaction. At the end of his career, 1 year before his death, we're able to hear that struggle in real time. On Holocene, like I mentioned before, Justin Vernon of Bon Iver is trying to understand the differences between feeling significant and insignificant. The pain of day-to-day reality hurts, but the only other option is knowing that nothing you do matters in the end. All of these songs tackle the lowest of lows and the highest of highs, darkness and light, depression and happiness. There's conflict and resolution. We're introduced to feelings that are familiar, but they're presented in ways that seem completely new. And for me at least, I know that the concept of exploring familiar ground, even though it feels bold and dangerous, is extremely attractive. Very few people want to just jump into something completely unknown, and that's what makes these songs so great. They lead you on with sounds that feel safe, but in the end, you're gaining new perspectives and listening to new ideas. A beautiful song is one that challenges our psyche in ways that are unforgettable. From the second I heard Fake Plastic Trees, Hurt, and Holocene, I knew that they were special, but I did not know why. For years, I've been replaying them, crying to them, screaming the words back to them, but what I'm just understanding now is that these songs feel like life and death to me. They represent the greatest contrasts in this world, and that is what makes a song beautiful. Hey, thank you so much for watching that video. It's been a while since I've done something so abstract and emotional. If you want to support my channel, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow me on social media at RenshawHS. You can buy my merch, support my Patreon, and thank you again. I'll see you soon.